Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Hey everybody, I can't believe it's finally happening, the much anticipated Coaches Week, and I received a lot of support for the idea and decided to just go for it. So I really hope you all love and appreciate every single episode, coach, and all their insights. So before I introduce our first coach, I want to preface this week by saying every coach I'm bringing on is a professional with their own achievements, education, and experience. Many of them you'll recognize as well-known names. If I could fit every amazing coach in the bikini competition world on this show, we would have a whole other podcast, but I'm so excited about the coaches that I will be featuring on the show, and we would have we would have a lot to conduct these interviews with, so I decided to make every single question the same. We're going to focus on the same questions for every coach with 1 to 3 topics that I've prepared specifically for the individual coach. And this is all about getting some serious understanding about who these coaches are, what their philosophy is, and even asking them questions others might be afraid to ask them. So the intention is for all of you to learn not just about them and their style, but also learn from them and their expertise and experiences. So this is not a popularity contest. This is not a who's better than who debate. Like a fight. It's just, this is about truly highlighting the individual strengths and systems each of these coaches have to offer the competitors in their own passionate way, because we all know everyone's different and so are these coaches. So without further ado, our first guest is Adam Bonilla, the creator of Team Elite Physique, who started in the fitness industry at the young age of 16, working at Nutrisport nutrition stores, where he began designing supplement programs for fitness competitors in Southern California. Then at the age of 18, he began training with 24-Hour Fitness in California, where he excelled with clients and was put in charge of the 3rd largest club in the company. As the years went on, his skills progressed and he began training personal trainers on the proper training practices at a district level for the company. And with this position, he was also given the task of training special conditions clients, fitness competitors, high-level athletes, and post-rehab clients with severe injuries that had limited movement. Now working in the fitness industry for 21 years and as a trainer for 19 of those years, he has honed his skills to the level of master trainer and specializes in the area of the field in which he loves, and that is competition prep. How are you doing, Adam?
I am doing great. That was a great intro. I'm going to record that and make that like my call in when people call me on my phone.
That is so awesome. Yes, you should.
I hear that stuff and I'm like, man, hopefully I'm in the right career path. That's a lot of time I've spent here.
Oh my gosh, that's true. Could you imagine? You're like, I've invested all of this.
Yeah, I was a much better grocery store manager. I should have done that.
No way. That is so awesome. And I have so much respect for you. And I'm actually really excited to be having this episode with you and featuring you. And of course, from the conversations we've had and getting you on the show, we've actually been able to develop a deeper connection by which we're going to make an even greater impact together on bikini competitors, on competitors as a whole, both in competition prep and post-show, where we really struggle mentally. And I am so excited to announce that you've asked me to be part of your coaching team. So can you explain to everybody what that means?
Yeah, so that's just one of the things that, as Team Elite Physique has grown to what it is now, like we bring on specialists for different things. So I have a physical therapist who's takes on our athletes, and I have people fly in from all over the world. Like last week alone, I had someone from Brazil, South Korea, and what was the other country? Oh, the UK. Yeah, Phoebe was here. So, so we've had, all the time we have people flying in from different places, and they want to work with like these specialists that we have in here in the office. So we have, physical therapists. We have like some of the best doctors for checking, people's internal health and their hormones. And like one of the lagging pieces that we've had was always, like that post show, like the psychology part of it. And it really became quite apparent to me which was, my ex-girlfriend, Hannah Leon, she's actually competing soon too. She's awesome girl. She was a major in psychology, and she was like, Adam, you're probably one of the best like nutrition scientists I know. But as far as like the mental part of it that goes into it, like you're too hardcore. Like you grew up in fitness, and I grew up in, Venice Beach area, and I was there growing up. She's like, and you're just so hardcore that you don't see it any other way besides just do fitness, and it's hard for you to understand that. You need to get better at that or bring someone on. So it took me a while to like find someone that was not just like in the realm of like, psychology, but in the realm of psychology for fitness athletes. That's the hardest thing, because there's a lot of like psychologists out there, but have any of them gone through what a fitness competitor has gone through? Have any of them understood that the extreme dieting and what happens after, and how do you feel when you're ripped versus how you feel maybe a month later, and like the psychology of that, So I didn't even know that you did this. I just knew that you were on a podcast, and we just started talking, and I was like, you know what, that makes sense. And it's easy. It's, it's affordable. And you're like, because you've done bikini stuff before, it like just makes so much sense. Cause it's hard to find, it's
Mm.
like psychologists don't wear bikinis,
Yeah. Usually they don't, huh? And I appreciate that. And I'm so excited. And I think it's going to be an awesome way, like you said, to really reach those aspects of the competition world that don't get touched on enough and can use that extra support. Because like you said, I've been there, I've walked in their shoes. I'm still a competitor. I still know how that feels, but it's all about having those tools and processes to work through it. And just from, of course, working through my own relationship with food and my body and my goals, I was able to create a special PTG process, I've called it, just for bikini competitors. And I spent all my time in earning my psychology degree on studying those things that really get in the way of bikini competitors having a more fulfilling journey, whether that's their body image, the way they feel about themselves, the way that they think about themselves, their self-image, of course, eating disordered or disordered eating, I should say, binge eating, restricting after binge eating, the binge purge effect, which a lot of bikini competitors don't realize they have. They'll binge, 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 and then they'll go and they'll work it all off with cardio, and then they'll do it again, and the cycle repeats itself. So I knew that I had to do something about this and make sure that the girls who are competing in this sport have longevity, because I think that the quickest way to burn out or get tired of the sport or hate it is, of course, by having a negative experience with oneself. But once we heal that relationship with ourselves, then of course competing becomes not something that gives us validation, but something that just confirms the internal validation we already have. So I feel really grateful and blessed to be part of your team, and I'm excited to talk to you even more about your coaching philosophy. So of course, as mentioned, we're going to go through a few different rounds: philosophy round, we're going to go to hypotheticals round, and then a rapid fire round. And we'll talk a lot more throughout the episode about like that psychology of competing too. So first of all, what is your coaching philosophy?
Yeah, that's a strange question, right? Because there's so many different things that can go into that. So my whole thing, like, I guess it's my whole start to this was a lot different than most people's. I started, actually, if you want to hear the whole story, which is crazy. I started this fitness thing. I was always obsessed with muscles. My mom actually sent me a picture from my birthday, which was just past, of this character I used to draw called Mickey Muscles when I was 8 years old, and
Wow.
always obsessed with it. I don't know what the reasoning for it is. It's just something that's always been like something I obsessed about. So I used to draw this character. So she sent me one of them. It was pretty funny, and like it's in my office now. This started way back then. And what happened was I was like 11 years old. I broke my arm and I gained a bunch of weight because my mom sat me on a couch basically because it was a really bad break. And the doctor said if I was running around too much, the arm could shift and I'd need surgery. So she just sat me on the couch and I gained a bunch of weight, like not a lot, but for me, it was, I was like 11 years old. So I gained like, I don't know, 11, 15 pounds, something like that. And my sister called me fat, right? And then I was like,
Mm.
oh my gosh, I'm fat now, And
Yep.
so we didn't know anything about nutrition, especially back then, I'm 37, so it was a while ago. And my mom, she's from an immigrant family and she didn't know anything about nutrition. So I ate salad and drank Diet Coke for over a year. That's all I did. And because I didn't know, I was like, oh, well, salad's healthy and Diet Coke is diet. So I'll just drink that and eat that. That's all I did. So obviously that
Wow.
wasn't the best, the best thing. And then it just kind of like started from there. I started lifting weights and then it just came from there. So it came from a different background than most, but what I've tried to accomplish in the fitness industry, like I started saying, 20 years ago plus, is, a long time ago, I picked a fight with fat and I'm losing, So how do I make this, even extreme contest prep, a way where everyone can do it and everyone can accomplish the goals? Because I see a lot of people hating contest prep. They'll do a show and they'll do whatever, 2-3 shows, and then they tell their friends, "Oh, don't do it; it'll ruin your body," or "Oh, don't do it; you'll lose your boyfriend because all you do is spend time in the gym." And the reality is that that's so unnecessary. Like this like old school way of thinking with coaching, where you need to do an hour of fasted cardio, which has never been proven by science to be more effective than fed cardio. The extreme diets of doing such limited food options, of just doing chicken and broccoli, or just doing tilapia and asparagus the last week or whatever, like that stuff is old school, and it doesn't really play into today's world with all the research that's been gone on. So my goal is to expose the fact that fitness is for everyone, even extreme fitness is for everyone. And whether I have someone off season who's just like living their life and working out, they're going to work out for maybe 4 or 5 times a week in the gym for like an hour and 10 minutes a day or so. And when someone's in contest prep, in the heat of it, in the very last stretch of it, are still only going to be in the gym like an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 40, not like 3 hours, 2 separate trips, all these things. Because if people can do this fitness thing where it's sustainable and realistic, then anyone can do it. The moms at home who have a husband that like they need to come home for or whatever, like that, they can't spend 3 hours in the gym. Extreme fitness is for everyone. It's not just for crazy people who don't have a job, or college students only that have a bunch of time on their hand. So that's my goal, is to give people the most amount of calories possible, the least amount of cardio possible, and have them look like a badass on stage and still win competitions. And my goal is to just expose that and create more awareness of it, that contest prep doesn't have to suck, and that anyone can do it as long as they do it the right way and aren't making themselves unhealthy in the process. So I guess
Mhm.
that's in a nutshell what my mission in life at this point is to just expose extreme fitnesses for everyone.
I love that. And it's very aligned with a lot of the things that you talk about, even on your website, where it's like you guarantee certain things for them. Like there will be no more than 45 minutes of cardio. You will get back to them quickly. Like you are putting things in place that will, of course, get them happy with the results and happy with that sustainable level of an extreme commitment, or what could be considered extreme, making it more sustainable. And of course, as a coach, then this can create a lot of demands on you. So, what kind of mental, physical, and even emotional tolls does coaching take on you, and how do you handle those types of demands?
Yeah, I guess people don't really see that side of things, right? Because it's just the coach,
Mhm.
and it's kind of like self, self-inflicted, right? And I know what I'm taking on when I do it, but I have this I have this insatiable desire to be better every single day, and I wake up every day trying to be just a little bit better. And that's where we're at now. We have the world's only contest prep center, like in the entire world. There's not another one. It's to get to this level has been 21 years of hard work, and people don't really understand the sacrifice that goes into it, because they just see it, they see social media, they see the fun of it, they see all that, but they don't realize, like, to get the contest prep center up and going. And it took literally everything from me. People are like, "Oh yeah, everything from me, I'm sure." I'm like, no, I had nothing. Like, I sold my
Mm.
house, I sold everything I had that was worth of any money. This building became available to me. It was 3 days on the market, and I offered them the money to buy the building, and I didn't even have the money I offered them. And they were, I had,
Mhm.
I had 3 months to come up with the money, and I worked like, I think it was from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock every day to try to just get enough, because I was just short quite a bit. And I worked so hard to do it. And then after I got the building, I put every single dollar into the building that we made from the team in contest prep back in the building for over a year. And I didn't pay myself the entire like 6 years before that to just put that money in the bank to like get this building. It was a very low wage, I guess you'd say, like a couple $1,000s a month is basically what I lived off of to get to this stage for years. And because I had this dream of doing this contest prep center and taking it to the next level. And people were like, "Oh, cool. Now you got this contest prep center, you're making a ton of money, whatever." I'm like, no, the contest prep center is not profitable. Like, it's not a, it is a, there's no membership charges. We don't charge for people to come here to go posing classes. We open the gym up for free, not just to my team, to anyone in the community, because we're trying to impact change. Like I want to change the
Mm.
world through fitness. I don't care about the money. So it's people don't understand what it takes on you. Like tired days is just how I live. That's how I function. Last weekend was one of the best weekends in Team Elite Physique history, and we've been around 19 years. We had 18 people compete in one weekend. It was crazy. Every single one of them placed. We won like 2 overalls. We won. Ashley won the mile high, back-to-back mile high in the IFBB Pro. Phoebe did the Toronto Pro. She got 6th place. So I got 6th place. So I guess she was in a mega show, and she's just up and coming. And then I had one girl I was trying to get in contact with the whole day, but she was at the show in a different state. And I'm like, hey, how'd it go? How'd it go? And then she messages me back the next morning. She's like, I won my pro card. And I'm like, what?
Oh my God.
You didn't just immediately tell me? She's like, I don't
That's
know.
so funny.
I was so excited. I went out to dinner and I just forgot, and I was just like enjoying it. I'm like, well, that was a great weekend. It was just so funny because I woke up to that on Sunday. So like, it was so tiring. Like, Ashley stayed at my house for the last, like, Ashley and Phoebe both stayed at my house for the last like month. So I haven't had a day to myself for over, I don't know, 40 days. And
Wow.
to get prepared for this stuff, all the testing, all the flying in, and I still have to work my regular, contest prep, like programming and check-ins and whatnot. So it's pretty hard, especially when you have like pros doing shows and you're trying to put your all into it. It's draining. Like the next couple days after a show, I just like sleep. I sit
Mm.
working and I just come home and sleep. So it's tough, but it's worth it. When the smile that it brings on their faces when they win, it's like, it melts my heart. Like especially with like when you have a pro, like let's say for example like Phoebe, who got a first call out in Toronto. Like she got first call out in Toronto. She finished 6th. There were 7 people in the call out, and it's a super show. A high point show.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you get 5th place there, you get 5 points, which is more than you get if you get 2nd place in most like smaller shows. Like it's a big show. So she's like so happy because she realizes, hey, you know what? I do belong here. I'm not just someone who got a pro card by luck, and the right girls didn't show up that day or whatever. It's
Mm.
like I actually belong here. So she's so happy with that, and then like it makes it all worth it. That, and then Ashley getting off stage with her back-to-back mile high championships after nursing a knee injury. Like we still did it, and it's like just it takes so much. People don't see it. But it's an awesome feeling when someone wins a pro card or wins an overall or whatever. I don't care how much work it is. It's worth it.
I totally get it. Like anytime a client experiences a win, whether it's a small win or a big win or a win they've never ever experienced or one that they're having again over and over and it's repeating itself, as a coach, you just feel so good and fulfilled. And like obviously you're doing something right. It's a sense of their validation is also yours and their reward is also yours. And their wins and their losses as well, like teach you something, and that's something that is worth celebrating always. And I totally get it, and I love that. And that kind of leads me to the next question, which is, what do you think is the difference between a good athlete and then a phenomenal champion athlete?
You know what? Honestly, what I'm going to say to that is, so obviously there's a genetic component, right? But the genetics only go so far, like people don't understand the effort it takes. And I will tell you that the effort is where it's at. If you have a client, like let's say you have a top pro, and I have a few top pros, and I've worked with a lot of the top pros. I don't just work with my own clients. I work with other coaches' clients too. And it's important for me to continue to do that with them, because they're going to come to me and they're going to want like some testing or figuring out something that's difficult. I worked with someone's client the other day. I'll leave their name out of it. And their client had kidney issues, and they didn't understand why she had kidney issues. And and then I changed her whole diet around and sent them back to that coach. And she was healthy by the time we were done. I worked with her for 6 weeks, and her kidneys got under control. She worked with my doctors, me. I changed her diet around, whatever. And then it helped her. She got her kidney levels were under control, and everything was healthy again, and she went back to her prep. So the point of me saying that is that effort, no matter what it takes to get there, is required. No matter how good you are, it's effort. That girl worked with an awesome coach. I'm not taking anything away from him. He just didn't know how to do that stuff. So
Mhm.
he worked with me for a while, and she put out that extra effort. She flew into Denver. She did these extra things because she wants to be champion. Ashley is the most winning bikini pro in the history of the sport. No, there's not anyone really even close to her at this point, how many wins she has. And she's doing the Mile High, which to her is not really a big show. She does that because it's in Denver, and she basically lives in Denver half the time because of me. But she does that because she knows that in order to be successful in today's bikini world, which is extremely hard, especially at the pro level, it's gotten harder and harder since it's so international now and the point system exists. She knows she has to put out an exceptional effort to get an exceptional result. And so she full on moves her life to Denver for like 3 weeks before shows and works with me every single day for those 3 weeks. And that's someone who's like the number one girl ever in the sport putting out that type of effort just for a small show. I mean, and then I have regular girls who are getting ready for a local show, and then they're out cheating on their diet and not understanding why they're not getting that pro card or getting that same result. I'm like, well, there's a difference of effort. It's all about effort. If you put in this sport, if you put in 100% of the effort, you'll get 100% of the results, and your coach will be 100% behind you and give you their all too. However, if you put in 90% of the effort, you are not going to get 90% of the results. It doesn't work that way. And your coach isn't going to give you 100% of his effort because he knows that you're not giving 100% of your effort. So that's what I think it separates the good from the great, is 100% of the effort, 100% of the time, 0% of the excuses.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And when you said that exceptional effort equals exceptional results, that really stood out to me. And then how you mentioned like these girls are really taking responsibility, right? Regardless of if you're at the top or not, taking responsibility is the key to, of course, moving forward. And some of the girls who are cheating on their diet, some of the girls who are struggling to stick to their plan, a lot of times they just don't even believe that they are worthy of that result. They don't believe that they're capable of it, so then their mind gets in the way of them actually succeeding. And then usually when you dig into that, it's like, oh, okay, well, I've never been able to stick to a diet. Oh, okay, well then we need to work on that. What was that first cause? Like you said in the beginning, like when you were 8, you gained weight and your sister started calling you fat. I had a similar experience. My first diet was like bananas and milk diet, and I was like always the big kid. And I remember like as I got older, I really had to work through a lot of those beliefs, a lot of the beliefs I had about food, about dieting, about being able to be elite, right? Whether that's as an athlete or in business or as a coach, like we have these limiting beliefs that get in the way of us actually being successful. And I think that goes back to your point then of if you can commit to the effort it takes to work through that, then you're gonna get to that exceptional result. But if you cannot commit to the effort to work through those things, even those underlying issues that can be causing them, then you can't expect that result.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with that. It's a lot of it too is this like, and that's one of the things I'm so big about talking about the contest prep world and the old school versus the new school. And I think that there's this like huge line drawn in the sand between prep scientist, versus prep, meathead, like that type of thing. And I don't think that like there's like the bro, let's talk about the bros or whatever. That's the thing is people are so hard on the bros that are science, like in the science part of it. And then the bros are so hard on the science guys when they're so science about it, and that doesn't need to exist. The actual truth is the bros sometimes have things that work. There's not a line drawn in the sand between those two. It's the science stuff, the research stuff always is going to be great because it's research and it's proven, but there's always going to be stuff that isn't proven that the bros might have already figured out. And so you have to like be willing to at least expand your mind past the bro or expand your mind past the science, right? Because you'll look at like some of these top science nutritionist guys out there and they're like science nutritionists and like, this is the only way, right? And they're so
Yeah.
adamant about it. And then you're like, really, that's the only way because you've never prepped anyone ever for a major competition. And if you have, they haven't been successful, or maybe you're prepping people for small competitions that no one knows about or no one cares about. But like, let's call it what it is. The people who are prepping people for the top level, they are the ones that are kind of doing both the things, right? Science
Yeah.
and pro stuff, right? And so that's the thing. Like you have to be willing to expand your mind. And it's kind of like there's there's this story about these elephants in Thailand, and it's kind of crazy how it works. And there's these little baby elephants that they tie to this really small stick in the dirt. They tie it to a small stick, and the baby elephants don't move. They just sit there tied to that stick. And when they're these big giant elephants, they still tie them to the same stick. It's crazy. And the elephants, all they would need to do is try, and they would remove that stick and be free if they wanted to, right? But they're so set on the concept that it won't work because of what they've learned in the past that they don't even try, So like when you have contest people who are doing like I'm just one of those people that's just carb sensitive. I have to do 2 hours of cardio a day. That's cool, Adam, that you're athletes that don't need to, but you must be getting them in a different state, because I'm just one of those people who's just carb sensitive, and I have to do fasted cardio, and I have to do 2 hours of cardio a day, and I have to work out for an hour on top of that. And I can only eat fish, and I can only eat asparagus, or it just won't work. And I'm like, but really, is that the case? Or are you just a big elephant who's not trying to pull on the stick, right? So that's something that's like big to me and creating awareness about. I want people to learn their bodies and actually like find a way that works for them that might be better, and at least try. Let's figure out what happens when you increase your calories. Let's figure out if it's still possible when you reduce your cardio. Let's look at the science and show that fasted cardio is not more effective than fed cardio. They're both have the same effect, right? So there's no difference. So like, let's make this a way where you can do this forever, because if you can only get to that contest shape by doing extreme things that you can't sustain all year long, then guess what? You've earned a body that you can't sustain all year long. That's how it works. If you're doing something that's unsustainable to get a result, that result is also unsustainable. So let's figure out a way where you can kind of stay lean in the off season. You're not going through these huge ups and downs, which is extremely hard on the heart. And then, a few years later, you burn yourself out and you never excel in the sport because you're always chasing that last physique after the rebound, and I hate hearing that story. I do a show, I rebound. I do a show, I rebound. Well, like, really, is it because your prep was unsustainable? Is it because you have issues with food after the show? What is it? But if it's because your prep's unsustainable, that's your coach's fault. He set you up for failure. And now every time you prep, you're going through these extremes. Don't expect your career to be very long, because it's not possible to do this. The amount of times you need to do this especially as a pro bikini competitor these days, which is probably going to be like if you're a really good pro and you're trying to qualify for the Olympia, you'd have to do like 3 or 4 shows just to get in, and do really well in those. And if you're not like a top pro, you're going to need to do like 6 to 8. How are you going to do that all year with that type of aggressive, unsustainable prep that's like, causing like hormones to be produced less and metabolic damage to happen, and you're going to have to overcome that by effort now, more and more and more. So, my mission is one. It still comes back to the same. This is sustainable for everyone. Find a way to make it work for them. So
I love that. And that elephant story, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so
that
perfect.
story was fire.
Yes, it was. It was so awesome. I was like, I've never heard it put better. Like, such a great visual representation of what so many of us go through, and draws a direct parallel to then what you were saying with like the post-show rebound or with the mental side of this. It's like, I have girls who come to me and they're like, literally, I had this one woman, I'm not going to say her name, but she's written about it on one of her testimonials, but she was like, I did not think this was going to work. One of my food journal clients, she's like, I did not think this was going to work. And I was like, okay, like, I'm glad you tried it though, right? Like, she didn't think it was going to work, but she committed to it. She was committed to what? Taking the step, trying, moving away from the stick, right? Moving away from what she thought worked. And because she let go of that control, or because she let go of what she thought she needed to do, she actually discovered what she needed all along, and she discovered what she was looking for. But had she stayed in that belief of this isn't going to work, then of course she would have never gotten there. And like you said, then that creates things that aren't sustainable. It creates that burnout. It creates more rebounds, most likely, because we're not willing to try or learn more about our body. And in this past off season, I took a bit of a risk. I was like, okay, I need to get my period back. I've been nervous about increasing calories, increasing my food intake, cutting back on cardio. But when I did it at the rate I did it, it didn't even cause a big issue. And it was like, had I not taken that step forward, I probably wouldn't have gotten my menstrual cycle cycle back as quickly. I probably wouldn't have experienced the positive health changes I did so quickly if I just was like, I have to stay in this box. But when that motivation is so strong and the reason to change is strong, or the reason to succeed is powerful, and we've given reason, then taking those steps becomes a lot easier, because even if we fail, well, we're still not, we know we're going to be better than where we started, right?
Yeah. And that's an awesome story because it shows, she pulled the stick, right? She pulled it out and she put an exceptional effort and got an exceptional result. And you have to challenge yourself in more ways than just in the gym.
Yeah.
I admire people's dedication who go through that stuff and like they can stick to something so rigid. But the reality is it's just, a lot of them are setting themselves up for failure. And you see it all the time. Like someone retires from bikini and they're just like, oh, it's just not worth it anymore. And I'm like, why is it not? Like, if you just would have done almost the same thing that you would have done in the gym for prep, maybe just a little bit more cardio and a little bit less food versus these huge extremes, then you wouldn't be saying this, because it's basically the same thing you're doing now, just a little bit more focused. When I was teaching classes for, back in the day for 24-hour fitness, like the trainers, I used to do this thing where I would write on the board two different people, and I would write a weight loss woman who's 200 pounds. And then I would write contest prep person who needs to get in shape for a show and lose like 15 pounds. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would put on the board, okay, guys, and I would have like a class of all these eager trainers. It'd be like 30 trainers that were all super eager to get started in fitness and change the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would write down, what do you do for this person who weighs 200 pounds, who needs to get going? Like, oh, we just need to get her start moving. Just put her on a treadmill for like 15 minutes and like some light circuits and things like that, right? Have her stop drinking soda, have her stop eating chips, things like that, right? And then I'd be like, and then this contest person needs to lose 15 pounds. What do you need to do for them? And then they'd be like, okay, fasted cardio, like 30 minutes. We need to get them eating, get rid of all their dairy, get rid of all their whatever, their artificial sweeteners, get rid of anything like this, and just have them eating clean chicken breast. And it literally would come down every single class. This would happen. They'd list all these extreme things. And I'm like, do you guys understand like the polarities of this situation? This woman,
Wow.
extremely unhealthy, like bordering on like, if she keeps it up, is going to probably shorten her lifespan. And this person here is extremely healthy and they only need to lose a few pounds to get ready for a show. Why are we taking such extremes and opposites, right? Why does the contest prep person not just need to move a little more and eat just a little bit less? Why is that not the start? Because they only need to lose 15 pounds. They don't need to lose, 80. So why are we going through these extremes with them? It just doesn't make any sense. Like it's not a logical thing. It's like saying, hey, I'm going to go to the grocery store. Should I take the Ferrari because it's getting me there faster? Like it doesn't. No, you don't need a Ferrari to go to the grocery store. It's a block down the street. Like, why are you going to go through such a, like, that's the car you,
Warm up the car, sit in it for a while.
you're
You
going,
know?
like, that's all you're doing. You're just, when you're getting ready for a show, if you're managing your season, like your off season, right, you should just, I always tell people about 6 to 8% above their stage weight. So, it should just be a few pounds. And if you're not able to manage a few pounds, it's probably because your diet was too extreme and it's unsustainable for you to manage that. But if your diet's not that extreme and your cardio is not that extreme, well, then you like reversing out of it is pretty easy to do because you're not even changing that much. So,
Mm.
and that's another topic hopefully we'll dive into, but like reverse dieting and the correct way of doing that. Like people have such a skewed, idea of what that actually is, that that's like probably the most harmful thing happening in our industry is probably incorrect reverse dieting. And,
Mm.
and like, should I just talk about it or no?
Yes,
Okay.
because that's one of the topics
I'm like taking control of the podcast. Welcome to Adam Bonilla's podcast.
I love it. I want it to feel like that. That is no, definitely. And before you do talk about it, because that is a topic I wanted to have you go into, I thought that whiteboard was another great like visual representation, and it's true of like identity, right? Like people give identity like to bikini competitor, to athlete, right? Where it's almost like that identity is so extreme. Like that's how we define it. So then when we're challenging that belief of maybe that identity doesn't have to be so extreme and out there and like the 1%, you know what I mean? Then it challenges us to go, oh, okay, well, like maybe that's not how I am, or maybe that's how I should be. And when we think that's how we should be, then those other problems manifest. So, a big part of this is working on that identity. How do you really define yourself? What is a successful off season? What is a successful prep for you? So yes, let's dive into the reverse dieting, because this is something that we've talked about before, and I think it would be awesome to hear your point of view on.
Yeah. And I don't, I mean, I know where the term reverse dieting came from, and it actually came from a good place. And it was really where it came from was who brought a lot of like light to this was like Lane Norton, who's an awesome guy. I respect him so much. And he named it reverse dieting, which people just like didn't really listen to what he was saying, and they were like, oh, I got a reverse diet. That means I need to increase my calories very slowly and reverse the diet, right? Because the name itself is kind of implied, right? It
Right.
reverse. So, but that's not really what happens, right? So let's dive into a contest prep, right? If you're doing a contest prep, you're going to be lower in calories, you're going to be moving a little bit more, and you're going to be, doing that for probably about 16 weeks, some people 20, if you're really lucky, 12, right? So you do this for a period of time. And now as this happens, there's this thing called adaptive thermogenesis, which is essentially the body's way of slowing everything down inside internally to kind of offset the calorie intake being so low. So that's why your diet is progressively lower in calories as your body's progressively adapting to the caloric intake being less. So when this happens, a lot of things happen internally, like your teeth. There's less T3 to T4 thyroid hormone conversion. There's like all these like hormonal reactions that are happening that like make you more hungry and things like that. So when you do a show and you do, let's say, 16 weeks of a diet, well, your body is at its like slowest metabolic pace it could be for that time frame. Now, what happens is, for easy numbers, let's say you got down to um, let's say you totally like bro diet and you got down to 1,000 calories to make it easy.
Mm.
Well, your true maintenance calories, let's say it's like an average female 5'5", like 120 or so. Your true maintenance calories are probably closer to like 1,800 calories, maybe. Let's say 1,800 calories. And so that person's eating 1,000 calories. Like, okay, I'm going to reverse diet now, and now they're going to do 1,100 calories, then for a week, and then 1,200, then 1,300, then 1,400, right? And these people who are really dedicated, they're like hardcore, they'll actually do it like that. They'll increase their calories maybe 100 each week or maybe 200 each week. So when that happens, like, think about it, your maintenance calories are 1,800. You're still exercising, which is, another, let's say 300 calories a day and all that. So let's say you're burning 2,400 calories maintenance, but now you're eating 1,100 calories. Well, you're still in more than a 50% deficit, and your body is not going to recover metabolically yet. So what happens is these people, they prolong this reverse diet for 8 weeks, sometimes even 12 weeks before they ever hit maintenance calories. So they're like, well, I did it right. I'm staying lean while I'm doing it. I'm doing a good job, right? Well, wrong. What happened was you took a 16-week diet and you added 12 more weeks of dieting to it. So now instead of you doing a 16-week diet, you've actually done a 28-week diet. And now your metabolic rate is more adapted than it was when it was at that 16-week marker, because there's still an adaptation process happening, even if you're in less of a caloric deficit, because any caloric deficit is going to require a metabolic adaptation. So you have to get right to maintenance calories right after you do a show. You have to get right to maintenance calories, or else your metabolism will not start recovering. Those things that you talked about, your hormones won't start recovering. You won't get your period back for a long period of time. These are the things that people are doing wrong, and it's making everything harder, because instead of dieting for 1/3 of the year, now you dieted for half of the year, more, be over half of the year if you did that reverse situation that we just talked about. So now
Mm-hmm.
you're making progress and gains only 5 months of the year versus 7, right? Or versus making maybe 8. And so that really hinders someone's results. And I hope that people listen to this and say, hey, and if there's coaches out there that are like, if you're an athlete, like, send your coach this podcast. I want them to learn. I want them to be like, hey, like, there's a point to that. I don't care if they like me or don't. I expose this stuff so much. So many coaches hate me for it, because like I make it hard on them. And I'm like, I'm sorry if I'm making it hard on you while you're out there hurting people. Like, do you really think I care? Like, I'm here for the athlete, not for the coaches. So if your coach does have you slowly increasing your calories, like, look it up, research it. This is talked about by some of the top guys, like, even like, you'll see there's a bunch of YouTube things and whatnot on the proper reverse dieting. So I'm not the only one doing it this way. But if your coach is still slowly doing that, expose them to the fact and say, hey, is this what I should be doing? Because I'm still in a caloric deficit when you're increasing my calories only 200 per show. Like, I've had people call me up and they're like, yeah, my coach told me my reverse diet was just follow my exact meal plan, but in reverse. Every time I made an adjustment. So every week, just go to the last meal plan that was given me before.
Mm.
And like, they're slowly increasing. Like, no, that is 100% incorrect. So
What would you say to someone who's afraid to go straight up to maintenance or doesn't even know what their maintenance might be?
So Well, one, I would kind of repeat what I just said right now and explain to them that
Mhm.
you're just going to make things harder on you in the future, because a lot of the reason that pros retire isn't really age. A lot of it's because it gets harder and harder on their body to get lean. And
Mhm.
so if you want to make your future career easier, you need to flex your you need to flex your metabolism just as much as you're flexing your muscles. And so people don't do that. They exercise everything, they do cardio, but they don't exercise the insides, right? They're like, oh, I don't care. Just tell me what supplements to take. I'm like, and it's kind of like that thought process, right? What supplements do I take? I'm like, well, first off, let's make sure your body can even process the supplements that you're taking before you try to take any supplements. Like
Mhm.
let's make sure the body's set up, pH levels are balanced, you have all the right vitamins, minerals, you're eating the proper amounts of proteins, you have healthy bacteria in your intestinal tract, you're digesting food right. Like that's the stuff that matters way before you start saying, hey, let me jump on some creatine or whatever. Like
Yeah.
you need to make sure your body's actually functioning right before you can start flexing muscles, or getting muscles to grow. That's the last thing the body's concerned about if it's not healthy. So what I would say to them is this. I do things with like measurements and weight. That's big to me. All my check-ins have measurements and weight. And you know, test your metabolism, like test it yourself. After you do a show, push your calories to where you think maintenance calories are. Even if you're scared, maybe for a week, just do a little bit less than what you think they are. That's fine. It's another week of dieting. I don't prefer it, but if it makes you happier and mentally, then yeah, fine. So you raise your calories up and then just see how much weight you gain. See what your inches have, how your inches grew on your waistline, on your hips, like the key markers. And if your waistline, your hips, or whatever markers you use, your thighs, your arms, whatever, if they're not going up and you're eating more calories, then you're probably doing a pretty good job of it. And if your weight doesn't go up, then raise your calories again. We don't want to. The purpose isn't to gain a bunch of weight after the show. The purpose is to gain a bunch of calories and reduce your cardio to as minimal as possible. That way, when you start prep again, you're at a good starting point. Okay. So we call these thing like settings, like metabolic settings or like your physical settings. So if your setting going into a prep is you eating 1,500 or 1,400 calories, and then you're already doing 40 minutes of cardio a day, and then you call up a contest prep coach, you call me up, you're like, hey, Adam, I'm getting ready for a show. I got 16 weeks. I got 20 pounds to lose. Currently I'm eating 1,400, 1,500 calories, and I'm doing 40 minutes of cardio a day. I'm going to be like, what options do I have? I have to start at
Mhm.
1,400 calories. Your body's adapted to that. I have to start at 40 minutes of cardio. That's where your body's at. And then you gain 20 pounds on top of it. So now I need to lose 20 pounds in 16 weeks and starting at 1,400 calories. Like, get ready to suffer, because that's the only way you're going to get there. And then by then you're just making it worse and worse and worse. Every prep, you're going to be more adapted, more likely to rebound. And then it catches up with you a year, 2 years later. And then you're one of these girls writing on Instagram, prep ruined me. And I'm like, no, prep didn't ruin you. Your thought process about prep ruined you. Your people that you met along the way who weren't nutrition scientists, they were just someone who looked good because they had a great butt, and you follow their advice when you knew they had no education or experience. That ruined you. So
Mhm.
this is the highest level. I want to repeat that again. This is the absolute highest level of fitness, contest prep world, right? But it's weird because trainers don't need to go through what every other professional sport goes through to be that highest level. Like if you meet an NFL like sports and like strength and conditioning coach or someone like that, that guy is so crazy smart that actually made it to that level. So crazy smart. I had a friend who interned for free for the Denver Broncos for 10 years before he even got
Wow.
a triple assistant position, lowest paid guy on the totem pole for that long. Like, can you imagine that? But not in our world. In our world, it's like, oh, I got abs and a butt, now selling contest prep programs. I'm 19 years old. It's like, and then people buy their training programs and wonder why they're having these bad effects. I'm like, yeah, dude, my entire life I've done this. Like, I've done this
Mhm.
longer than some coaches have been alive. And
Yeah.
that's what it takes. And I'm still learning and still making mistakes. That's what it's what it takes. You got to, like, you can never stop studying this stuff. Like, just because you got people calling you these days, you can never stop studying. You always need to dedicate that. And these people out there who are using like coaches who are doing these things to them, like, they need to do their own research. It's just hit the Google machine. It's out there.
Yeah, Google Scholar. It's true, but that kind of answers and goes into what I was wondering about, like what makes a coach a good coach? Because, like you said, there are so many out there that aren't necessarily prepared to take on work like this. So, what else do you think contributes to that?
Just honestly, it comes down like, so most, I would say, I think most of the top coaches that are like my bros, like I think they're pretty much educated. But honestly, like my education, you know, I don't think it really has much to do with the success that I've had. You know, obviously I'm well-rounded in that stuff, and I got a degree in sports management through wellness and fitness, and I'm like certified nutrition fitness specialist and all these different things. I got like, I don't know, 9 certs or 8 certs. It's something crazy.
You have a
But
lot more than that.
yeah, I don't, well, you know what it was is like I worked for 24 for like 13 years. And so they paid for my certs every year to get a new one. And so I was like, oh, I'll just study this book. And it was like free. So for a long time, I was getting free certs. I just had to take the test and like study it. So that's why I just kept doing it.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, it was like I had to do it to keep my certs active too. So
Right.
I just kept taking new ones and new ones and learning a little bit more. But I mean, you don't really learn like the in-depth technical side of contest prep from those things because no one really knows about it. Like those people who make those books don't really know about it. They know the basics. They teach you a couple of things. You pick up a trick or two here or there, but really it comes down to reps, you know. I had 18 bodies on stage, in which I learned from having 18 different situations on me just last weekend. You know, last year we had 100 and I think it was 117 people on because we track like for Colorado residents, we track like those just because it's easier to track than all over.
Mm-hmm.
So we tracked those. We had 117 people on stage, and we had 117 of them walk away with trophies. Not single person last year didn't place. So
Wow.
that was, you know, we've done that three times in the last 7 years since 2012. We've had perfect season out here. And I track it just to make sure I'm staying sharp and I'm not lowering my quality, you know. But I think to be a good coach, you have to have experience, you have to get reps in, and you have to care, you know. You have to stop like just taking the money and just like understand that you need to limit yourself. I've had in the last year and a half, I was like, my assistant Taylor was tracking this. We had over 50 pros reach out and ask me to prep them, and I took on like
Wow.
7. So think about that money, you know, that's what is that? 43 pros paying like, you know, right around $3,000 a year that I said no to. So I said no to whatever, 120 plus $1,000 last year alone, because I didn't want to make my time too short where I couldn't give them the attention. I became this, you know, prep factory where everything became so watered down that my quality wasn't even there anymore. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's how I want to do this too. I want to do it right. Like you look at like these crazy cars that they make, like these specialists that make these cars, they don't make, you know, like as many Honda Civics as there is, you know, as they do of those cars. And
Yeah.
it's because they can't, they're all handmade and there's a lot of time and effort put into each one, you know. I don't want to
Yeah.
be the Honda Civic of contest prep, you know. I want to be the Bugatti or whatever it is of contest prep, you know. I want to be like the best efforts in. So that's why you only see me work with certain pros too. And sometimes for just short periods of time at that too, just because I don't have the time to continue that career with them, as I'm dedicated to a few of them right now, for however long they decide that's going to be. So like Ashley, I'm dedicated to her for the rest of her career. She's like one of my best friends. I actually love her to death. Like she's actually like family, you know. I talk to her every day, and you know, however, you know, she takes up a lot of my pro time, and I don't care. Like I'm going to enjoy it. We have so much fun together, make so many laughs together and travels and experiences together that I just want to enjoy it. I don't ever want to make it like a factory where she just gets an email from me and that's it, you know, like
Yeah.
that pro level requires more time. And so, you know, I'm doing that with Phoebe now too. And I got a couple surprises coming from you for you guys next week, who I decided to take on all the way.
Ooh.
Yeah, I got. I'll give you. Actually, if I give you too many hints and tell you, but
I'll
just
probably know right away.
yeah, just know that there's an invasion in Sweden going on from Team Elite Physique, and that's
That
all.
is awesome.
Took me one of them has been kind of, we've been talking about it and actually asking me since March to take her on. And you know, I see it now. I see the dedication there. I see the willingness to be teachable and coachable. And I told her, hey, you need to be a good student if you're going to be with me, because I don't want another pro that's halfway in and halfway out, you know, because I
Yeah.
do get some pros that are on their tail end of their career who they're very, very adapted, and they have to be very dedicated to get past that adaptation when I get them on. I just don't want that, you know. So I'm like, hey, you be a good student, you listen, understand there's a purpose behind everything. And then she's like, I'll be a good student, I promise. And she's been showing me that for a solid 8 weeks now. So I'm like, okay, I'll take you on. So
That is awesome. Well, I can't wait to hear who that is, although I have some ideas. then, of course, when girls are like looking for coaches, right? They want to hire someone, or maybe they're looking for a new coach. What are some things that you recommend that they look out for before deciding to hire somebody?
They don't need to look out for anything. They just need to contact me. I'm just kidding.
I got
No,
all the answers.
there it is right there. No, so one, like there's a lot of different styles that people need from their coach. And, like I'm not going to fit everyone's style. Every coach is going to have like clients leave them. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It just wasn't the right fit.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I think is important too. If one of the athletes like wants to leave their coach, like it's not, that's their money. They can leave if they want. You don't have the
Mhm.
manager of Target going to Walmart looking for their customers saying, "Hey, what are you doing over here?" You know what I mean? Like if you're not making your customer happy, let them spend their money wherever the hell they want to spend their money. That's their money. That's their experience. That's their journey. So you coaches, you need to do your job the best way you can. And if it wasn't good enough for that client, then so be it. I've even had clients that it was good enough for that client and they still left. But that's fine. That's on them. I had a girl leave who had 5 first places with me, never a hint of failure, 2 overalls. And she left. She's like, "Oh, I just want to try something else." I'm like, "All right, good luck to you." Like, if I couldn't make you happy with 5 first places and 2 overalls and never not a lost point, I don't know what I could have done. So good
Jeez.
good luck to you. But that's just the way it is. The coaches need to just settle down that stuff. It's I think that coaches, I think a lot of the athletes too see coaches and see different teams and think of it as like a real like football team, like Raiders versus Broncos, and oh my gosh, like I hate the Raiders and I hate the Broncos and all this stuff. And I'm like, no, it's not like that. We just have a name to our team so you guys can like enjoy each other and celebrate in the camaraderie of being the team and have something to like be proud of and like represent. But we're all on the same team, and that's team NPC IFBB. You're not on just
Mhm.
Team Elite Physique. You're doing something, and you're exposing the world that you can do this. You can push your limits, and you can have this type of crazy Greek goddess physique. And this whole team thing, it's really just what we call our teams, but it's not like rivalries. Like I don't have a rivalry with like Kimoto or Pro Physiques or all these guys. Like I respect those guys so much because I know what it takes. Like I see those guys all the time, like traveling back to shows. Like I go to a show in like South Dakota or Japan or Korea or wherever, and those guys are there. You know what I mean? Like I know what they're going through, and I respect them because it's hard as a coach. People don't understand that. So the whole rivalry team thing, like that doesn't matter. So as far as what you're looking for out of your team, what you need to look for is make sure that the quality is maintained. Make sure that the head coach is like involved in your prep programming. All the top coaches, just so you guys know, it was like, just so you know, all the top guys who've made it to the top have help. Like they all have assistants and whatnot. Like we have a full contest prep center. It's like an $800,000+ facility. Of course I have help here. I have 2 main sources of help that like look at my diets with me and look at things behind the scenes. They don't take over contest prep programming, but they help with it. Absolutely. And that one has a degree in dietetics. Tori Wright, she's been with me for 4 years, has a degree in dietetics. And then Taylor Handberg has a degree in exercise science and a minor in nutrition. And they help with that stuff. And I'm actually going to be having someone bring on Sam Catlin, who's going to help with take over figure division and women's physique division. And I'm going to have another guy named Ryan Baker, who's going to take over classic physique and bodybuilding division. So I can focus all my attention on bikini and men's physique. Wellness is not decided yet who's going to get that, because the criteria is not out yet. So I'm just not sure who that fits better. So just know that your coach is gonna, like, the top coaches are gonna be the best, because if you look at the top level, it's always those guys who are putting out the winners, because they've had the most experience. So if you want that, you want the best science, yeah, you go to those guys, you go to the top guys, but don't expect you to get like the attention that like a 24-hour fitness trainer would give you, because you're his only client. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So if you want that type of attention where you're like, I need to see them every, twice a week before a show, the last 16 weeks, an hour a day each time or whatever, like understand that that's going to be a different level of trainer. Those level of trainers are just getting started and they have that time available. And the higher level, the more advanced technique trainers that have more experience, yeah, they're at a higher level. They're not going to train as much physically anymore. So like, that's kind of one of the things that needs to be decided. But also you also need to understand that there's like big teams out there that have coaches that aren't really as educated as maybe the head coach, and they take over all their preps. And I disagree with that myself. I don't think you should have just hire anyone to take on someone's prep because you have so many people calling you now that anyone can do it. Like
Mm.
I'm 100% on the back end of every single program that goes out of my office. And if I'm not going to take on the client. I'll shut it down for a while. So um, I never want to be that busy where I'm the Honda Civic producing, talk about. But like you'll see some, and I disagree with it because there's a lot of business models that are like that. And that's when it becomes like all about the money, all about the business.
Right.
You have like one head coach, but then you have like 10 head coaches, and all those head coaches aren't even working in the same office as the head coach. So now they're just doing, so you have 10 different systems working under one brand name, right? Like I
Mhm.
couldn't imagine having Team Elite Physique and then having just 10 different coaches all over the country where I couldn't even manage what they were talking to their clients about. I'm just handing clients to them, expecting them to be somewhat on the same level that I'm at, even though they've only got maybe 2 years in practice in bikini world, but maybe they got a bikini pro card because they got a nice butt. And now all of a sudden they're some expert and can help everyone. That doesn't make any sense. So look for that too. Like don't buy into the like factory. Make sure your coach, the head coach, you can talk to, you can email, you can directly correspond with, and that it's not some like factory where you're just getting some lesser coach because the brand name's there.
Mm.
Brand name, Team Elite Physique, it's just the team name. It's Adam Bonilla's training, right? So
Right.
that's what it is. It's not, we're not like this company that has the same replicated franchise everywhere like McDonald's. No, one guy can make the burgers here. That's me. And so that's how you should really look at it when you're doing contest prep. So just look at that stuff because it's important, and make sure they're educated, make sure they have experience, look at who they're bringing on, putting into shows, look at how they're doing in the shows, that type of thing, especially at the higher levels, because that's where it's really difficult. So
Mhm. Absolutely. And I love that you said, like being on a team, it's something you can represent and be a part of and have camaraderie amongst each other, but it doesn't take away from the camaraderie and team aspect and community of being in the NPC or being in the IFBB. And I love that you said that because I feel like this sport has so much love and support among each other, but there are sometimes it's like cat fights. It seems like my coach is better than yours or my team is better than yours, even though at the end of the day we're all stepping on the same stage, right? And
yeah,
the judges don't always really know. I mean, yeah, they get to know the athletes, but something that I think comes up is the idea of this all being political, right? Like, oh, being on a team is plays a role in like your placing, and
yeah.
it's politics. Like, what do you have to say about that?
That's I love that you said that because I that's probably the thing I hate the most, like because it's so disrespectful to the athlete that won. Oh, that athlete
Mm.
trains with Adam Bonilla, and of course they won, right? In Colorado or whatever, right? No, not really. Adam Bonilla has been training people for 21 years, and of course he has an edge over your trainer who's been training for 3. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's really the scenario. Like there's more technical sides to the guys that are better, so of course they win more. If you look at like let's look at like a lot of people, and I feel bad because I hate it because like Oda will get a lot of heat for that stuff, because he's like the biggest, so people give
Right.
him a lot of heat. Dude, he's really good at what he does, and he has an amazing team. Like look at his team. He's got Janet and Angelica. Like he's got crazy girls in his team. Like you think that he's not gonna get wins with those girls? Like he would have to really try to not get wins with those girls. You know what I mean? Like you have to put an effort in to sabotage them for them not to get effort. They're amazing athletes. I love those two girls too. They're so nice. So like yeah, of course, the bigger name teams have bigger name people, and those bigger name people tend to win a little bit more. And so it's not because of politics; it's because of that. So I'll give you an example too. So like let's just take, my home state's Colorado. Let's just take me for example. So last season, well, and I'll take me for example too. So everyone knows, like all the judges know me. I'm friends with all of them, but that doesn't get in way with the stage. If I step on stage, I'm just a competitor. I'm not their friend or athlete. And I've placed as low as fifth, as low as third. I've won a couple of shows, yeah, but it was because I brought it that day. And then let's like look, that was earlier in my career, but let's look at even later in my career. The girl, for example, Hannah Leon, that I was dating for a while. She's an awesome person. Me and her are still really good friends. She came out, she lives in Florida. She came out to a show, and all the judges knew she was my girlfriend, and they knew about that. And I thought she looked killer, and she got fifth place. And I thought,
Mhm.
honestly, I thought she could have won the whole show. And I wasn't even being biased because I was her boyfriend at the time.
Yeah.
So like the judges gave her no respect for being my boyfriend, right? There was no points extra. There was no anything. It was like, hey, we think this girl's better than you, and I don't care who you're with, who's your boyfriend, who your team is, whatever, right? And if anyone was going to get the push, it would be a situation like that, or a situation like me, for example. But the judges don't care, and they don't. And just so you know, too, like these, especially like on the national level, like the national level competitors, who those are the ones who say it the most, and it drives me crazy.
Wow.
Like Sandy, like Tyler, Steve, all these guys, they're at a show every weekend and they see 1,000 bodies a weekend. They see so many bodies. They don't care who your coach is, but two, especially on a local level or national level, they don't know who your coach is. Like,
Mhm.
there's no like backdoor us saying, hey, this girl's on my team, give her a bump. Like, if they did that, they'd probably would like yell at you. I would never, like, can you imagine even bringing that up as a coach?
No.
It's crazy. Like, how would that even start? And let's just look at it, for example, like, let's just give it like a hypothetical situation. Let's say that was happening, right? in
Yeah.
today's in today's modern era, there's like anywhere between 3 and 7 judges per show. Okay. So there's 3 and 7 judges per show, and there's probably like 10 shows going on a weekend. So there's 70 judges every weekend. There's 70 judges. Let's say there's total of like 100 and plus judges every month, right? So
Mm-hmm.
let's say that that's happening. Let's say that there is politics involved, and people are getting like their coaches are telling them, oh, play this guy, do this guy, right? Do you think at this point that some text messages wouldn't have like surfaced or something,
Yeah.
some evidence of some type from one of these knuckleheads who are telling, or like the head judges saying, hey, you need to place this person somewhere? It's just not realistic. And let's say, for example, I was best friends with a judge, and I said, hey, give my girlfriend first place, right? Well, the NPC and IFBB, they've created a protection system for that exact scenario. Like, let's say a judge was also the coach of someone, and they're not supposed to, but they didn't tell anyone that they were coaching that person. Well, the protection mechanism for that scenario is your high and your low score get dropped. So if there's 7 judges and one of the judges is in the coach's pocket or whatever, right? Some crazy scenario. Well, that score doesn't even count because it's the highest score. And then let's say there's another judge who doesn't like this girl because she's dating her boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, right? Well, that score gets dropped too. So there's a protection system in there just in case. Even though there's not, I know my sport to be pure. Even though there's
Yeah.
not, but even if there's a protection system. So that means that if you were to get a political pool, you would need every judge on board pushing someone in front. And that means if every judge was on board, that there would be something by this point, where it would come to surface that, oh, there is actual politics, because I saw a text message from this guy who posted it because he got sick of it or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just not the case. And people want to use that as excuses. And lesser level coaches will say that about higher level coaches, just to like give themselves a reason why their athlete didn't place well. And they'll be like, oh, well, that girl was with Adam, so of course she won. That's all it is.
Right.
Coaches will be like, they just need to see your face a little more. They just need to see your face, and then you'll get a pro card. That's all it was. It was like, no, she just wasn't ready. That's all. That's all it was. Your body does the talking. They don't care who your coach is. They don't care how many times you've been in front of them. They don't remember you like 90% of the time if you were in front of them, because they saw 1,000 people that day. So like, it's just your body. It's just your body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I always like tell myself in my head, like, you gotta create a package that is undeniable, right? So no matter how you show up or who you're with or anything someone might know, it doesn't matter because your physique is so undeniable that there's no way that no one could cheat the system, right?
Yeah.
And I think like coaches, especially at the higher level, have that respect. Like you said, like it's disrespectful to the athlete to even say politics is the reason they won. And I think any coach wouldn't even want their name connected to politics, or wouldn't even want their like athletes probably wouldn't want their coach asking them to do that for them, because they want to win too. Like they want to know that their hard work was worth something, especially at the higher level too. So I just love everything you said there, and especially explaining like how that judging system works, because we've had I'm sure you know, do you know Robin Maher?
Yeah.
So she came on and talked about her experience as a judge and how it works, and it's like it gives you so much insight into the fact like this is, like you said, you know, it's protected. And one of the other questions, part of the like philosophy around that I wanted to know from you was like, what are some of the common misconceptions that people or girls might have when they come to you?
You know what? I don't really get too many. I would say, I guess I don't get too many because I'm so public about like really my life and my methods and everything, So I think people pretty much know what they're going to get with me,
Yeah,
I don't,
totally.
yeah. And I get that too. Like I get a lot of like, I got interviewed by Muscle Insider. Was it Muscle Insider? on Saturday, and they asked me that question, a different question. They asked me like, how come you're successful, like you're so successful with these people? And I tell them, well, when people finally like get to me, like some people start with me and I love that because then I know they're not going to be like adapted and have to work around all this stuff. So it's actually I really like it. But a lot of times it's people will do a few shows and then they hear about me and then they get to me, right? Well,
Mhm.
generally when they get to me, they're like already ready. Like they know what they're going to get. They're like, okay, Adam is puts it all out there. He's a nutrition scientist. He's going to give me the best possible program that he could, and I'm just going to follow it. That's my job. I'm definitely like I know he's a busy guy. I'm not going to like try to like call him every single day and try to work around this or whatever. You know, like people that I get at this point, like for the most part, follow their diet. They do what they're told, and it becomes really. I mean, honestly, my job's become easier as it's gone on because I can write diets and people like know they're going to follow it. So, you know, in the beginning stages of my career, it was like trying to get someone to follow a diet was like impossible, you know. But now it's like, oh, I'm working with Adam. I'm following his diet, you know, exactly. So I don't know. I guess I don't get too
Yes.
many, but yeah, I guess you after a certain amount of years, you kind of earn that. So
Totally. And like you said, you put out so much content anyways, there's not many questions left to ask, and there's a greater understanding and level of respect too. So let's move into the hypotheticals round.
let's
And
do
the
it.
first one, I've I think it's yeah, so it's we'll just get into it. So if I'm 1 year into competing with a few overall wins under my belt, and my goal is to get my pro card, and I've never stepped on the national stage, I've been working with the same coach for a year, that whole year that I've done all that, but I was looking for a new approach. Why would I hire you?
That's a good question. A tough one too, right?
Mhm.
Because so this is the one thing I will tell you is your coach will learn you. Okay. It will take time to fully learn you. It might take a few preps to do so. So, you know, if your coach was like let's I don't want to say I hate saying lower level, but I would say like less experienced. I guess that's the best way to say it.
Yeah.
If it's like a less experienced coach and has never brought an athlete to the national level, but you're winning overalls and whatnot and you're killing it. Like let's say first off, let's like prefix this with like you're killing it at the right shows, like big shows, right? Like actually challenging
Yes.
shows, not
Good
like these
point.
tiny shows and you jumped in, there's 30 people and you won, like big deal, right? Like let's like real shows, like real shows. Well, maybe give the guy a shot. Like don't even look at like the big names because he needs everyone needs to get that opportunity to train with someone at that level, and you don't know what they're made of until they actually push themselves to that level. And I don't want to say it's a good learning opportunity for him because you never want to be the learning opportunity for people, but there's always going to be that learning opportunity even at the highest levels. Like even I'm still learning, I still make mistakes, you know. So
Mhm.
one, I would say make sure that it's don't come to me because you think I have the secret sauce, you know, because the reality is like we have to figure you out. I'm probably going to figure you out faster than an average coach because I've been doing this longer, you know. But if someone's done, you know, whatever 10 shows with you, they probably got a better understanding of your physique than on your body, how your body works than I would in my first prep with you. You know, so will my practices be better? Maybe, you know, I don't know who this guy is. So I would say really look into it, really look at what the difference is going to be between us. I would have to look at their plans previously to see if there's any holes because that's if I look at their plan and I'm like, oh, there's a bunch of room here for growth. Well, then I could be confidently say, okay, yeah, I could put out a better physique, you know, but maybe not, you know, I don't know. It would be case by case, I guess I would say.
Yeah, totally. And that makes sense too. Like, and it does go to that point of it being case by case and of it being important to understand like what is the actual circumstance. So now let's say and I know this happens to every single coach, but I'm 4 weeks out from a show and I keep saying I don't feel ready, but you believe that I am. What's your response?
Well, I have two different ways of responding to it, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes I'm hardcore about it and I'm just like, and I actually, this happened last weekend and this girl was like, I don't feel ready, whatever. And it was like a week out. And I was like, I know this is my job right now. I know that it's my job right now to tell you and make you feel good and make you feel like ready and like basically console you and telling you, hey, like you're going to be great and all this, but I'm not going to do that because someone who's as good as you should know how good they are. And I'm just going to leave it at that. And so that worked really good for her. She like wrote me back. She's like, "Oh shit, game face," and like, and then killed her show. She placed in her classes, all her classes. So like, you know, she was ready. I would say, you know, your coach. You got to understand too. Your coach. isn't going to he doesn't want to put his name on something that's not going to be a package worthy of winning or worthy of at least looking the part. No one wants to put out, 10 of the worst physiques at a show and be like, where do these girls come from? Like your coach has pride behind it too. At least he should.
Yeah.
Like I put out a lot of, like, there's a reason that 117 out of 117 people placed last year in Colorado. Like I care that about them winning probably more than they care about winning themselves, because I want to, not just, I mean, for purely selfish reasons and being purely like, I guess, candid about it. Like I want to win through them. I want to win probably more than them. I want to look like the best, and I want to do that by putting out awesome physiques that are dominating shows. Like I want to go to a show and it's not even about like there's the athlete part, and I love the athletes and the stories I get, but I want to go to a show and be so good at what I do that everyone else, when they realize that a Team Elite Physique person is in their class, that they're like, oh man, I'm going for number 2. That looks like I'm shooting for second, right? Like I want it to be that level, like at that level. And so if your coach cares about it, he's not going to let you go on that stage if you're not ready. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I want to kick ass extraordinarily. So
Absolutely. That makes total sense. And now the last hypothetical question is your client comes to you and says they've rebounded after their show and they just want to reverse it and get back to normal. What do you do?
yeah, that's a tough one, right? Because the problem is when people rebound, and they'll usually do it in like a 3-week to like 6-week time frame. It's like a really common time frame. So they were dieting hard, they got ready for a show, and then they did it for 3 to 6 weeks. They gained back whatever 20 pounds, right? Well, now the only way to get them that weight off of them is to diet again, but they haven't gone through the proper correctional diet yet. And just because they ate a surplus doesn't mean that their body's fully corrected. And now you're starting the same circle and same path over again. Unfortunately, in that scenario, the best thing to do is to go right to maintenance calories, not gain any more weight, but try to reduce their cardio, try to keep their calories at maintenance calories where they're not gaining any more weight, and then get their metabolism back up to full speed before you start dieting. So unfortunately, that person was a bad student. They didn't do their homework. And so I would tell them, to get that under control more than anything. Maybe we can change their diet so it's more realistic for them. And now I'll probably tell them, hey, guess who you got to call? So,
Exactly.
because my job is not like, and all these coaches need to understand that. All these athletes definitely need to understand that. Like a contest prep coach, like there's not a single contest prep coach in the world whose job is to be the best at every single thing that goes into contest prep. My job is to be good, not the best at every single thing that goes into contest prep, and to be hopefully the best or close to the best that I can be as a nutrition scientist, right? So that's where I need to be the best at that, and personal like training programs. But the rest of the stuff, the psychology part of it, you can't expect me to be the best at that too. You can't expect me to be the best in terms of like hormone, like reading hormones and how to adjust things. That's why I have people for that. That's why I have who I think is the best for that, and I have them on my team. So you need to, get the proper, talk to the proper people if you're really struggling with that stuff. But my job as a nutrition scientist is strictly to do the right thing. In that scenario, it is get you to maintenance calories and get it under control.
Exactly. And I love that you said that because something that I was doing when I was doing some like research within the bikini world, which obviously being in it doesn't make it too hard for me to do that. But I talked to a lot of girls before I decided to like start offering anything, make sure that I was going to deliver at a high level. And I remember so many of them told me like they love their coach and their coach is awesome and really good at what they do. But they feel like when it comes to like the actual relationship with food or their body or in relationship to their goals and the mental side of things, maybe they don't want to open up to them. Maybe they feel like they're being a burden. Sometimes they felt like, well, they'd go and then the coach would give them like physical action steps and then they couldn't stick to it. So then they felt like failure. So it wasn't helping. So of course, then I saw an opportunity where it's like, okay, then this is something that I can definitely enter this space in and bring something that is going to address it and give competitors that, safer space to feel like this is someone who's not my direct coach. This is someone who is going to become another coach in my sphere of course, growing as an athlete and being better and, of course, developing as a person as well. And it's separate, but it works well together.
Totally separate, and I think people need to understand that your coach And there's a lot of like relationship confusion people have going into contest prep world, because your contest prep coach is a contest prep coach, you know. I don't like the word coach myself. I like the word like contest prep scientist, because I just think that we do things like all things by research and science for the most part. But the your coach, his job is to create a program that is the best possible program for your exact scenario, and it is your job to follow it. That is the extent of where the coaches goes, right? He poses you,
Mhm.
creates the best program for you, creates the best workouts for you, tells you what right supplements to take. His job is pretty busy with that, right? He basically creates a map for you to follow, and it's your job to follow the map. And sometimes people get confused with that and think that he has to do everything, right? Like he has to do
Right.
like every single thing. No, my job is all things in the contest world, and everything else is not my job. So you know, picking the right suit color, the right hair, makeup, that type of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. That's a coach's job. That's part of the show. But the other side of things is not. You need people that are specialized in that. People oftentimes will think that it's the coach's job to um, like, really teach them about every single thing they're doing too. Like I don't get a lot of that, because I guess at this point, you know, I'd be considered like higher level, so people don't really like give me too much of that. But I hear about it a lot of coaches, like, oh, this girl just wants to know every reason why there's adjustment. And I'm like, hey, your job, this is not a professor student relationship. Like my education is over $100,000 education in school. You're paying $2,000 or whatever for contest prep. You think you're going to get the same
Mhm.
education? It's not how it works. This is not a professor student relationship. This is a coach athlete relationship. And just like any coach athlete relationship, the coach of, like, let's say a baseball pitching coach, when he tells an athlete to pitch and turn his wrist a certain way to throw the ball, the athlete isn't asking him what he went to school for on that. Why is it this way? Why is it the whatever, the geometry of whatever is like this? You know, he's just saying, okay, I'll turn my wrist more like this. And that's how it needs to be. And that's how a lot of these people need to understand. That's what you're paying for when you get a contest prep coach, is the best possible program for your scenario. And it's your job to follow it. It's not like an education process where you're in school. That's school. That's what school's for. So
Mm.
same thing with the mental side of things, you know, like if you're having issues with it, you might want to talk to someone. So hopefully your coach has a resource for it, and then he can point you in the right direction. You know, I have people with a lot of like hormone issues and whatnot. I have an awesome doctor that works right in my contest prep center, that we walk them over to them and be like, hey, this is the scenario. Yeah, of course I know a lot about it at this stage, but I'm not the expert in the room, you know. So that's just needs to be something that I guess needs to be said.
Yeah, no, I appreciate and love that you said that too, because it's true, and that's true in any industry, right? Like, and the biggest thing I think is like you can't put years of experience into an email either, right? Or like years of knowledge and expertise gaining in a single course or a single response back to someone, because again, every situation is different too. Like every single person you're running into is different. The application is what matters. And I think that when we can focus on having, like, we hire coaches not for information, but for implementation, right? Like
Exactly.
they're teaching us what we need to implement. They're not teaching us what we need to create to then implement. Like it's not how it works. So coaches make our life easier. You know, they don't like, we don't have to do the work. I don't have to build my plan. I don't have to build my nutrition stuff. I can just give that to someone else. And like you said, the only job as an athlete is follow it. And then of course take responsibility. You know, if you don't follow it, okay, that's on you. You know, if you do follow it and things don't go well, work with your coach and figure out what needs to be changed. And that's something that, again, like you said, the coach's job is to give you the best plan for your current situation. And I think that is awesome to highlight. And now there is, you know, a little bit of rapid fire that I'd like to get into, and then one of them I know I definitely want to expand on with you. So you ready?
I love rapid fire. This is something that this is all I study for. Like one day what I want is to go into like a radio show with all the other top coaches, and like just have people call in and see who could give like the best answers and make it like a competition. I would love
We should
that.
do that. I should do that for this show. Like get
Dude,
all the coaches we brought on together.
I'll be all about that, bro. That would be awesome.
That would be scary.
I would jump in on every question. I would say question number
I'd be like, oh my gosh, whoever buzzes first, we'd have to get like a Jeopardy thing going. That would be cool. Okay, so you can answer it with one sentence or less. And then, like I said, we'll pick some to expand on. So, one, waist trainers.
one. That's actually a good question for me.
It
Um,
is.
I would so I'm afraid that if I answer this one, I'm not going to get to answer the other one. So I'm going to say yes to that.
Okay, I'm going to have you expand on that later.
Okay, well, good. I got a freebie.
Okay, good. If it fits your macros or more clean eating.
Oh, you know what? I want to go into this one. Okay. If it fits your macros, um, so here's the thing, like just because it's clean eating doesn't mean it doesn't fit if it fits your macros, right? So
Right.
with my plans specifically, I take that into account. And so all of my, like, let's say for example, like my meats. So I won't ever give someone just chicken and broccoli on their diet, even high level people. I'll
Mhm.
give them a diet that'll say like chicken, turkey, like lean beef, lean whatever, right? A bunch of different meat options, and it'll say like 3 ounces or whatever. And then in their carbs, it'll be like the same thing. They can choose from whatever 6, 7 different carbs. So these are all the carbs that are like measured, and they all have the same, basically the same effect. But why IFYM doesn't work, and the only time it doesn't work is because of it was taken so far from how it was created. You got to remember, this was created way back in the day by like Alan Aragon and a couple of different guys on bodybuilding.com. And they created the IFYM because we were so crazy back in the day that we thought we would lose our gains over anything, you know, because
Yeah.
there was no, like back in the day, like I started in nutrition stores in like 1998. Like we didn't have even internet came around in like 96 or something for this stuff. It was like, there was nothing out there. There was no information. It was like, so we just knew whatever we were told, like by bros. So we were like, oh, you got to eat every 2 hours, you're gonna lose your gains. Oh, if you eat a peach, you're gonna lose it. Like you can't. The glycemic index is too high, and you're gonna spike your insulin. You're gonna get
Mhm.
fat, right? So it was like we didn't know anything about nutrition back then, and we were just trying. So bodybuilding.com came out. There was forums out there, and then people would be like, "Hey, can I eat a peach on my prep diet?" And then Alan or someone would be like, "Yeah, you can if it fits in your macro guidelines. Yeah, that's how it started." And then all
Mhm.
of a sudden it became if it if it's in your macros or something like that. It was like IIYM, right? Something like that. And then if it was like if it fits your macros, then yeah, that's what. So it just started with that. And then someone saw it one day and then went to the extremes like everyone always does, right? Especially in nutrition.
Mhm.
And they're like, oh, well, pizza fits my macros if I can just finagle everything around it, right? But
Yep.
you got to understand that a few different things. One, when you eat a pizza or you eat let's say a chicken sandwich from somewhere else, like a fast food place or whatever, those are all measured highly, like all very, very different in terms of like calories. A bigger piece of chicken, more longer in the fryer, more bread this time than last time on the fried sandwich, more pepperoni this time, more cheese this time, whatever, right? Those
Mhm.
calories don't need to be exact. And that's not just because they don't there's actually a law. It's like the USDA has a reporting thing where you don't have to be exact on your calories. You have a margin of error. And in fast food places, they've seen as high as 25%. So like if you're looking at like doing it if you're fit your macro diet, but then you're also looking at doing contest prep, and we're talking about like my average adjustments for clients is like around 10% of their nutrition like calories. So like
Mhm.
let's say I give someone a 2,000 calorie menu and I make an adjustment, it might be like 180, like maybe 250 calories tops. Well, if your foods that you're eating are 20% off anyways, your just your margin of error is bigger than the control that I need. So
Mhm.
I can't make those adjustments. Not just that, but there's different foods that cause different things. So like if you're having like inflammation response to whatever, or if you're like gluten sensitive and it's making your waistline bigger, if you're not, eating a bunch of crap and it's making your waistline bigger because the inflammation in your stomach, if you're getting proteins that don't fit the amino acid profiles necessary for a top level bodybuilder, that's a factor too. Like there's a lot of macro and micronutrient reasons why IFYM I don't think fits the bodybuilder diet. Now in the off season and maybe doing like one macro meal per day, well that's different, And I in the off season I do that with some of my people. I'll say you have one macro meal per day. That way, if that one meal is off 25% and it's only 400-calorie meal, it's not going to like really just derail everything. Like if all 5 meals or whatever were off 25%, like the whole day was off. So
Mhm.
I will tell you this, if you're listening, I know pretty much every top bikini pro. Like I talk to a lot of them, like we all are friends. I'm not a guy that tries to ever take anyone's clients. So the people's clients always talk to me and stuff. I just don't, I'm just like the friendly guy, I guess, backstage. I'm like a fan of the sport and I'm like cheering for other people's clients and stuff. And they're like right next to me. Like this weekend I was with Ricardo Panin and he was there and we're sitting next to each other. And I'm like cheering for his girl, Alicia. And
I
I'm like,
just had her on the show, by the way.
yeah, yeah. Oh, really? I love
Her
her.
episode's coming out soon. So yeah, she's awesome.
So I'm like cheering for her. She's sitting with me and Ashley at the show before the week, like 2 weekends before. And like, I'm sitting next to Ricardo and I'm cheering for her and I'm cheering for Issa and all these girls. Like, I don't care. Like
You were
Jennifer
cheering for
Gordon.
Masa too.
Oh yeah. I cheer for her. I like give her shout outs. And if my
Yep.
listeners don't like it, I'm like, tell them, I don't care if you don't like it. I'm going to cheer for them because they're cool people, like Stacey McLeod, like she's my friend Bree. I love her. I cheer for her. Jennifer Dory, I lose my shit when she goes on
I
stage.
love her.
So I'm friends with all of them. I'm gonna cheer for them. So I know these girls. I know their diets. I'll tell you that none of them really are doing IFOM and prep. I don't know of a single one of them, and I know a lot of their diets. I don't know all their diets, but I know a lot of them. I haven't ran into one who's doing IFOM all the way into a show. So there's something to be said about it, you know?
That's a great point. Yeah, 100%. I've noticed the same thing. Like even in just like the ways that they post or they live their lifestyle, even if they're doing if it fits your macros, most of them end up eating the same thing all the time once they find what works for their body. They're like, well, I know cream of rice works, so I'm going to have that all the time. Or I know oats work, and it's like they figure out and then they apply that. So I think that's a really great point that you brought up. And yeah, I also think personally, I'm just gonna throw this out there, like I think lean eating is just like nicer not following if it fits your macros because then I don't have to think. And I feel like there's already so much thinking involved in like prep that I just don't want to think about that or try to do math all the time. But yeah, I prefer that too. So okay, next question. Fasted cardio?
I think I already go into this. So,
Yep.
I mean, did I already go into this? So I guess I say no, so I can save myself a later question I can dive into.
Yeah, save it. You did kind of cover it earlier in the fact that there's nothing proven scientifically.
So I'll say just real quickly so I don't lose my
Yes.
question. There's been 2 relevant studies done on fasted versus fed cardio. Neither of them have shown either of them being better. I will say I will dive into something else, which is HIIT cardio versus steady state cardio.
That's our next one.
Oh,
Well,
no
one of
way.
them.
Okay, I'll let you ask it. Go ahead. I'll let you know
Okay.
now.
So let's talk about it specifically, steady state or hit for fat loss without sacrificing glute fullness.
Oh, yeah, you're in my world now, baby. Yes. All right. So I've been killing this HIIT versus fasted cardio for over a decade now, pissing trainers off since 2000 with this one. So,
That's
all
so
right,
fun.
let's do this. All right. So, um, all right. So let's look at why trainers think fasted cardio is superior, and let's look at why they think steady state cardio is superior. This is an awesome lesson. I'm happy. All right. So, all right. First off, fasted cardio. Trainers specifically think fasted cardio is better for you because you have nothing in your system, and you're going to tap into fat stores at a higher rate. Right now, if this was the case, that would be true. But unfortunately, or actually, fortunately, your body has not fully evolved to that point where it's using up all of its energy stores just by resting at night. Okay. At nighttime, it is actually likely that you're using more fat stores than any other time of the day. Actually, that's factual. You will use more fat stores as energy than anything at any other time of the day. So when you move, you're moving at too fast of a rate for your body to oxidize fat and use that as energy. So it does use more glucose. So in that regard, they would be right. But unfortunately, in the problem is when you're sleeping, you're burning mostly fat because your body doesn't want to use its energy reserves, its quick energy reserves, because it doesn't need to. It's very smart on how it works. So when you wake up, you're still full of glycogen. Okay. So I'll say that again. When you wake up, you're still full of glycogen. Glycogen is basically stored glucose, which is carbohydrate. So you're still full of them. So when you're doing your cardio and you're doing it at a very slow pace, like low intensity, steady state, you think that your body's really just dying of no carbs and it has to use fat. No way. It's way more efficient than that. It would take you so much to deplete all of your glucose storages. And it's funny is that the coaches who say this are the same coaches that are overfeeding people on their protein. I'll have a girl with like 5.5 ounces of protein 6 times a day. And I'm like, you're on a low carb diet? And they're like, yeah, I'm on a low carb diet. I'm like, no, you're not, because you're eating 5.5 ounces 6 times a day. And that's through a process called gluconeogenesis. Your body's converting probably half of those proteins to be stored as carbohydrates. So the body goes through this thing where you're storing, if you have too much protein, it has to convert it. It can't store it, right? So it has to convert some of it and will actually turn it into glucose and store and use that as energy. So like, they're like, I'm on a low carb diet. I'm like, no, you're not. You're overeating so much protein that you have carbs running through your body like crazy. And you just don't know it. You're just making it harder on your body to get the carbs. And that's the only difference. So like, oh, I'm doing fasted cardio, but I ate 6 ounces of steak before I went to bed. And I'm like, yeah. And you weigh 110 pounds. Guess what? You didn't use even half of that as that protein. So there's like some basic thought process that doesn't make sense about that. Okay. So that's the fasted part of it. Right. But what
Yeah.
about the superiority of of steady state cardio burning into fat stores? Right. So let's look at a study that was done. I believe it was in 1974, if I'm correct. And that study showed, did a study on like the effectiveness of fat loss and doing cardio, period. And then back then it was just, they were just testing cardio, regular cardio, right? So in that study, they found that the slower you moved, basically, the more fat you burned, right? A steady state cardio was superior at burning fat than like HIIT cardio or any high energy expending cardio. That was the actual study. So any cardio that was like harder, you burned less fat. Well, of course you burn less fat because you're using energy at such a fast rate, you can't convert it. The faster you move, the less fat you're going to burn during that time period. Okay. So just like when you were sleeping, you burned the highest percentage of fat. The opposite, just like you're moving as fast as you possibly can, you'll burn the lowest percentage fat. So they took that one piece of information, which is basically move slower and you'll use more fat as energy than carbs or glucose. Yeah, they were right. But you going that slow has zero effect on the metabolism. Actually, absolutely zero effect. So what we talk about metabolic effect and metabolism and oxidizing fat, all these like technical things. Well, metabolic effect is essentially a process of your body recovering from an intense workout. Okay, it's called excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, which is EPOC, which means your body's going to like basically need to recover from the high energy expenditure that you just did and the high workout demand that you did, and that is what's going to result in a higher metabolic response. But you walking on a treadmill doesn't require recovery of the body, therefore is not going to require a metabolic response. So what that equals is if you burn 300 calories doing steady state cardio on a treadmill, that's going to equal the same exact result if you just ate 300 calories less, because there is zero, absolutely zero benefit in terms of losing body fat and doing cardio at that speed, because you have zero effect on your metabolism. Okay, so what I guess I should say zero effect on the metabolism, what I should say. But so with HIIT cardio, however, it's so intense that your metabolism will go through a higher a rush of basically faster metabolism with your recovery process through this process of the EPOC, which is your excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. So you're consuming more oxygen after you go through higher levels of HIIT training. But not just that, let's go a step further. What's going to maintain more muscle? Well, let's just look at things purely based on look. Does a marathon runner have more muscle or does a sprinter have more muscle? Obviously, the sprinter has more muscle because they're using more explosive, more white muscle fiber groups. You can actually gain muscle while doing just cardio by doing HIIT cardio, and you can also increase your metabolism at the same time. Versus steady state cardio, you will actually have zero effect on your metabolism. And because you're doing endurance based activities for long periods of time, you're going to have less total muscle, because what's required for endurance? Your body needs to be able to absorb oxygen for longer periods of time. Therefore, more red muscle fiber has worked and is getting better at absorbing oxygen. But because you need to be efficient for long periods of time, your body's going to carry less total muscle because you're going to do better with less muscle for long periods of time. But in the opposite end, with HIIT cardio, your body requires more muscle to be more explosive. So it's going to keep that muscle. So if you want full glutes, the way you do it is HIIT cardio. Okay. The only problem with HIIT cardio is it might make your legs a little bigger if they're too big already. That's the only time you're going to really make that deciding factor. But you're going to lose some glutes if you're doing just steady state. That's just the way it is. Boom.
Damn.
Okay.
Tell
Drop that
him.
mic. Drop the mic.
Preach.
I hope I piss off 50 trainers right now, and they like at least have to look at that, because these are the same trainers that are making people hate contest prep. And I would love it if they hate me because I expose this stuff. And so my goal, I'm the athlete's trainer. I'm not the coach's trainer. So my goal is to expose this stuff and to do this the right way and make it for everyone. And the coaches that are giving people 2 hours of cardio a day and making them hate contest prep and making them think that they have to do these extremes and there's no other way. Like, those are the people that are ruining our industry. You know, those are the people that are scaring people away from it, and they're hurting everyone. They're hurting just everyone, not just physically, but they're hurting the industry itself and creating a bad name for it. And so, yeah, absolutely, I want to expose those guys.
Yes, I love it. I love the passion. I just, yes, it's awesome. And it's obvious as well. And I think it's all the information you shared is really great. And even just so far throughout this whole episode, it's been like, oh my gosh, like these are things that girls can either raise to their coach or, research themselves and then come to a conclusion on maybe if they're doing the right things, if they need a new approach. And I love it. And this is, the last rapid fire question is about water cutting. What do you think about that?
Oh, can I dive into it?
You know what? Go for it.
Did I save it? Did I save enough?
Go for it.
So
I would love to hear it.
let's just be real. None of this has been rapid at all, right?
No,
So
people will be mad though if I was like, don't dive into it, because they're gonna be like, what did he want to say?
rapid fire with Adam is like watching grass grow. So the the reality is this. Okay, so there's there's this really weird thing, and I don't know where it came from. I don't know what coach did it, and I've even seen coaches do this where they like grab athletes' skin and they'll like feel it, like, oh yeah, you got water under you. You need to get, you're like watery. And I'm like, dude, what the hell are you talking about, right? There isn't. Okay, so first off, let's get this right. There is no water under your skin. Okay, if you've ever cut yourself, you bleed. You don't bleed water. Like you don't just, oh, I got a sprout of water out of my elbow, right? There isn't water under your skin, bro. So there's a thing called I did this I actually did an episode on this at one point. But basically there's this thing called interstitial fluids, and there's like intercellular fluids, right? So you have your interstitial fluids, your intercellular fluids, and your extracellular fluids too. So you have like blood and things like that. Those are like that's water in the blood, right? But you don't want to get rid of that stuff. You want your
Yeah.
blood to be nice and the amount of water it has needs to be in there, right? What people, I don't know, I think people think that they can shift so there's a thing called homeostasis, right? Which is your body's like natural settings for everything. And your body's always trying to be homeostatic. And what that means is your body's always trying to be very, very balanced. So what the balance is like percentages. And off the top of my head, I forgot the percentages, but they're like, let's say it's like 70% of the water is in the muscle, and then like 20 something percent is in the like extracellular fluids, and then like 8% or whatever is like in interstitial fluids or whatever, right? So water between cells is what that is, interstitial
Yeah.
fluids. So the only way to like get rid of water is to get rid of water in its entirety. You cannot shift the balance of those things. So you can't shift like how much water stays in your muscle and how much water is leaving between cells and how much water is in your like bloodstream, right? Like your thickness of your blood. You can't shift those things. That's a percentage that is decided by your body. You take a pill, it takes all water out. So now you're going after this very, very minute fraction of interstitial fluid, which is like less than 10%. Honestly, I forget the percentage. I did it so long ago. I want to say it's like less than, I want to say it's like less than 5%. I'll have to
Wow.
look it up. I forget. I don't want to get called out and say the wrong numbers, but it's a small fraction. So now you're willing to sacrifice like 70% of your muscle's fullness for this small fraction of water that isn't even really blurring the muscle, because what the reality is, if you're not lean enough, you're just still got body fat. It's not a water thing. You don't need to cut water and do all these things. All you're going to do is make your muscles flatter, you know? Like think of your muscles being a balloon, and the water is the air in the balloon for a lot of part of it, right? You wouldn't want to let that air out before a show. That's the worst idea to do, right? And then these girls show up and they're all flat and their glutes aren't full, and they're like, I look better 2 days later. Well, yeah, you cut your water, and now your muscles have like whatever 20% more muscle fullness because there's more water back in the muscles. It's a terrible idea. And this is why you see girls like dying on stage too, you know, like you'll see a lot of dehydration issues backstage at these national shows. There was a girl who died from it a couple years ago at USA's from dehydration. And I'm
Jeez.
like, it's so sad. It was yeah, it was sucks, man. It's because, and it happens every year. Someone will like get really hurt from dehydration. I had a guy, actually, he wanted to prep with me, and then he was like, he said it was like I was too expensive or whatever, and I was like, whatever, no biggie, but no biggie. And I saw him at the show, and then he was like so like looking bad on stage. The judge threw him water, like a water bottle, like slid him a water bottle on stage, and he drank it like
Oh
on
my
stage.
God.
And then he went to the hospital after that, and he sent me a picture, like a selfie. He's like, man, I should have prepped with you. He goes, I'm in here for at least 2 days. Like it
Dang.
was because he was cutting his water. And it's like, it's so sad that if they just knew the science behind it, that it wouldn't make them any sharper to cut their water, that like it would have like saved some people from having health issues, you know? Like if you're not tight enough, it's because you're not tight enough. It's because you don't have low enough body fat. It's not, water's not going to do anything for you. You know, yeah, the day of the show, maybe you want to sip on water instead of like drink a bunch, because it might make you a little bit like more bloated in your waistline, but because you have more food in there, but not like, it's not going to like blur you at all. Your body's used to having water in it. It's made of water, you know? So,
Mm.
so absolutely do not chase being this quote unquote dry by cutting water. You're just going to make yourself quote unquote flat.
Mm. Wow, another mic drop.
Right?
That's so crazy. And it's also crazy because, and I was curious actually, because you came from like the time in bodybuilding where everything was more hardcore, and weren't people like taking a lot of those measures, like cutting water, taking diuretics, what like natural and unnatural, but let's say natural diuretics as well. Wasn't that happening? So like what made you real? I mean, I obviously your education probably, but what else did you do that before? I'm kind of all over the place with this one.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I get what you're saying. Like, yeah, there was when I was younger and I was like 18, 19, even like I was doing this stuff when I was 16 years old. You got to remember, So like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was part of the Venice Beach like muscle guy crew working in a nutrition store, Like I was like a 220-pound 18-year-old full of muscle.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of bro things back then, and water cutting was definitely one of them. We would like taper water up. I mean, I would go like even back then though, I was trying to do these crazy things like manipulate aldosterone hormone, which is like how much sodium you eat early in the week and trying to get a spike out of it, and then cutting sodium at the end to try to like get more water out of you by manipulating like the sodium reactions and your hormone response to it. Like I was doing all these crazy things back then. And then I realized I was doing so much, I was creating an unpredictable result because it was like so many different things I was doing. I would like raise sodium for like 2 weeks before a show, then spike it on like a Monday, and then taper down, trying to get a drier effect, and then load water in at simultaneously with the same time, and then water chug at the last like hours before a show, trying to get more pee out of someone, then like measure pee in like water cups to see how we can get more out and take a diuretic. Like,
Wow.
the stuff I was doing back then was absolutely insane. And like I look at it now and I'm like, man, I just had them drink water. Like it would have been the same effect because I wasn't getting any better effect out of it.
Mm.
So, I guess you just evolve and learn as you grow up, and like, I guess you try less stupid things, but a lot of the things too is like just through my own research and science, like is been, because you got to remember, like back in the day when people were trying to like get programs from you,
Hmm.
no one knew anything. So there was no information out there. So the only available resource for me was to go to the library and read journals and stuff, read research reports. And you'd pay for them. Like you'd pay for
Yeah.
them in the back of magazines or pay for research reports and things like that. And I would buy them. And so I wanted to always be the cutting edge guy. And like at Nutrisport, all these guys would come in to see me from different gyms. And I was like 16 and all I did was study this stuff. And they'd call me Doogie. It was funny. Like, go see Doogie, which was like, there was this stupid sitcom of like this kid medical doctor who was like 16 and he was like running the whole hospital like back in the day. So everybody was like, oh, go see Doogie down at Nutrisport, right?
That's so cute.
I'd create these programs for him. And like for me, I never really like fit in as a kid. I was always like by myself, and like I was always like a kind of an isolate. And
Hmm.
like that was for me, it was like the first time I was like fitting in, was all these bodybuilders respected me and wanted to learn more from me, right? And these were the cool guys, these are the big guys. They're the bigger you were, the cooler you were, right? To me.
Hmm.
So like, me like trying to just impress them and learn from them was part of it. And then another part of it was genetically, I'm not the most inclined individual. I've done decently well with my competing career, but I didn't place from the age of like as a teenager till all the way until I was like 30, because I was a
Wow.
bodybuilder. They didn't have men's physique back then. And I was always just more men's physique frame. I was too tall and too small for a bodybuilder. I needed to really fill my frame out, and I just never could. I never got to like my height. I should be like 190 on stage, and really I'm like 170 on stage. So I was just always too small for that like middleweight division, or I should have been like a light heavy with my height, and I just never could. And so I just didn't do good in bodybuilding. When men's physique finally came out, I placed, but that whole time I was trying. That whole time I was trying,
Mm.
and because of that, I realized I'm not genetically gifted, but my brain works good, and I can find an edge by being like the best in the science, like the best by science. And it was really for selfish reasons is why I got good at this stuff, was because I was researching so I can overcome my genetics with knowledge. And along the path, I realized, you know what? I think me sharing this knowledge is probably the best route for me, because I'm definitely not going to be winning the Mr. Olympia title if I haven't placed in 12 years. So
Yeah.
that's probably true.
Honesty is good.
But I think everything happened for a reason. I think I broke my arm for a reason. I think I left fitness a couple times doing stupid things, like for like short periods of time, where I lost
Mm.
like all my money twice doing things that weren't fitness. And I think like I honestly think like God put me in this position and in this path and won't let me go on any other path, like if I try. And
Mhm.
so because I've tried, a couple times, I was like, fitness isn't the most lucrative like job. At least it wasn't back then. And the most you could make was like however many sessions you could train back then. You couldn't do
Right.
this stuff. There was no online to do online training, so your reach was just your gym. So I tried different things a couple times and I lost all my money twice and had to move in with roommates and went back to fitness again and all these different things along this path. And I just think that like like my purpose in this on this world is bigger than what I think it is. And I'm like accepting of that fact now. And that's why I'm like sacrificing everything now to like try to create more exposure. And I tell everyone I've been in a fight with fat for 20 years and I'm still losing, you know. I need more help. I need more exposure. And I think finally now I can get that vehicle to put this out there, you know.
I love that so much. It's true. Like literally, I feel like every pain we experience is obviously for a reason and it's teaching us something. And I look back on all those times that I experienced some of the deepest pains, and I'm like, I had to go through that to get here. I had to go through that to realize this or to become better at this. And it's just crazy. Like when I had rebounded after my very, very first show in 2015, I was like, oh my gosh, my mission is to help people build more than just a body, because that's exactly what I needed to do, was build more than just a body. So then I committed so much to like personal development and finding freedom with food. I started was already a certified personal trainer, and then I started like getting a degree in dietetics, and then I was like, oh no, I don't want to study dietetics, because then as I got even more aware of how mental it is, I was like, that's not for me. Like that's great, but it's not what I want to focus on. Like that's not what I'm here for. And then I started studying psychology, and then I found like just from finding that freedom with myself and with food and when I look in the mirror and all these different aspects of this, right? Then it was like I'd experience more pain and I was like, what the heck? And I never could have seen that like my mission of building more than just a body was for bodybuilders unless I had experienced another rebound, or unless I had experienced another painful event within competing, or I had a situation with food or a situation with my body. Is like all those things led me here. And you went through so much pain to figure out this actually is what you have to do, and regardless of what it takes from you or the sacrifice or what you can get out of it, the number one thing is that fulfillment from that passion and that purpose, and knowing like you are here to win that fight. You're here to continuously show up for that fight regardless of how hard it gets. And I just love that, and it resonates a lot with me, because now I feel like the same way. It's like I can't imagine doing something else. Like I've invested so much, and two, like if I tried to do anything else, all I would be thinking about is this. Like I can't even go a day
Yeah.
without thinking about it, a minute, an hour.
Yeah, no, I did that. I did that. I did the typical, the typical thing and, chase dollars instead of passion for a little while when I was younger and stuff. And it was just never enough. I'd rather, what's one of the stories that people don't know about like me is, well, I'm all like, one thing first off, before I say this story, I'm all self-made. Everything that I've done, I've earned like every penny of it. But like my dad actually, like when I was younger, he offered me to take over the family's grocery store. And it's actually like a really successful grocery store, like in the millions. And it's
Oh,
not, and I had that opportunity and I walked away from it. Even when they were fighting to get me back there, they're like, hey, you don't want to be a trainer. You can't make that much money being a trainer. And then they even told me, hey, we'll give you a brand new Porsche and give you a 6-figure salary if you just stay as a manager of the grocery store. And I said, no, I'm going to be a trainer. I want to do that. And I had no chance of making that salary back then. But it wasn't about that. I just didn't want to be my legacy to be, me being at a grocery store the whole time. And then,
right.
that was, everyone wanted me to take over that family business. And that was like kind of like what I was supposed to do my whole life. And yeah, you got to do what makes you happy, not just about the money. And
Mm,
at this stage, I make enough where I don't even care anymore. Like it's, I make money, that's fine, but it doesn't matter. It's just numbers in an account. Like the
yeah.
experiences that I have, like with people, and the experiences, like the emails that come in or whatever, that are like people are happy about themselves, or they feel confident they're on stage, or maybe they're just a top level competitor trying to win a championship. They win one. Like that is priceless. Money is whatever, but priceless is like those experiences that you get, the pictures that pop up, all these different things. Like that's how I'm compensated.
Such a great way of putting that. It's like the passion and the purpose is really the paycheck. And it makes all the difference when you get those confirmations as well. And yeah, I don't think anything can beat feeling fulfilled and knowing you're doing something really good for this world. And yeah, it's just awesome. And I love that, through that, obviously you're passionate, you love it, you're enjoying it, you look forward to it. So because of that, then there's no doubt that the result is going to be positive.
Yeah. it's good. It's a good feeling for there was like a motivational speaker that was like talking one day, and he was like, if you actually reach success, what would it look like? And then I was like, I'm there. Actually, this is actually what it would look like. I don't need to be any more successful than I am now. All I want to do now is just spread the word. I'm happy. So
That's awesome. That is so cool. And yeah, it's amazing what you're doing. And I'm really, really grateful for everything you're doing. And I'm excited to be one of your go-to people as well. I really appreciate you seeing that value in me and also for your girls. And now, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you think I should have asked you?
no, I don't think so. I think probably one of the only things I get asked about is just like why don't I take on so many pros and whatnot? And I think I went into that really. That's like my biggest question. Like, how come you don't? How come you don't? Like when you could. And it's just time constraints, I guess, would be the answer to that. But other than that, yeah, I think we accomplished it.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for everything. I want everybody to, of course, be able to either inquire with you, reach out, obviously show gratitude for sharing so much value on this podcast as well. So can you let everybody know where they can connect with you?
Yeah, so you can, if you're on Instagram, Team Elite Physique is the Instagram. I don't have a personal Instagram. I don't feel like my life is interesting enough to do so. Ashley always tells me you need one. And then there's teamelitephysique.com. You can go there and check out like the website. I do actually like physique assessments for people. If you ever have any questions, or like if you want to like know what you need to take your physique to the next level, like you can reach out to me and send me pictures, whatever, and I'd be happy to do that too. But yeah, basically Team Elite Physique is, everywhere. That's really where, mostly on Instagram, on YouTube, YouTube / Team Elite Physique. I try to put out one new video every week at least. This month we put out 12. So yeah. So yeah, stay, if you want to stay in tune with what we're doing, follow those places.
Awesome. I think you should have an Instagram for your office dog.
Oh, dudes.
Dudes.
Everyone loves dudes. That's so my girlfriend is Anya, and
Hmm.
that's her dog, but he's like basically my dog. She lives with me, so I love that little dude, man. He comes to work with me, and he's like he tries to get out of the office every day, run downstairs into the gym, and say hi to people. And like if you're laying on the floor, like doing anything, like he'll just lick your face. I'm like, dudes, he got out.
That is I love when he was like on that bench laying down and then he like scrolled and Ashley was doing the same exact thing. I was like, what am I watching?
It's so funny.
It was awesome. Actually, I had this really good friend back in middle school and she had a dog named Dude. And I remember like he got off the leash and we are like chasing him and he was running. He ran out to this other person's fence where I'm pretty sure they had like a dog and he could smell it. And we were like, dude, dude, dude. And then this guy who's like standing in front of the house goes, what? And we're like, oh shit. We're like, no, the dog. And he's like, what? And we were like, the dog's name is Dude.
That's so funny.
He was like a surfer guy too. I was like, oh my gosh.
Wasn't there a movie about that? Like, where's my car?
I love that movie actually.
They did a skit like that where like there's Dude and Sweet on the back of their back, a tattoo.
Yes, exactly. I love it. And when they go to the like drive through and they're like ordering and she's like, and then, and they're like, no more and then.
That's that movie. That's awesome.
I love it. Oh, my cheeks hurt. That is so good. Well, like I said, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing so much with us and kicking off Coaches Week so epically. And I'm so excited for everybody to hear this. And I look forward to hearing everybody's feedback, insights, takeaways, questions, all that good stuff. So if you're listening, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. All your reviews mean so much to me. I really appreciate it. Ratings, obviously, we've got all 5 stars, so keep that up. Thank you, guys. And I really appreciate all of you taking the time to listen, for tuning in every week, for all the love you share. It goes a long way. It means a lot to me. I appreciate it. I look forward to making an even greater impact in this world. Thank you so much, Adam, and I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you're in the world where you're listening to this episode.